To understand why you are actively ruining your own life with kindness, we have to travel back roughly 200,000 years to the most unforgiving environment on Earth, the ancestral human tribe. If you disagreed with the tribe back then, you weren't just disliked, you weren't just the subject of gossip, you were exiled. And in the ancestral environment, exile was an immediate death sentence. If the tribe pushed you out into the dark, the predators or the elements took you. Because of this, your brain evolved a flawless, ruthless defense mechanism to guarantee your survival. Agree, submit, survive. Your amygdala wired the concept of social rejection directly to the physical pain centers of your brain. This isn't a metaphor. Behavioral scientists have put patients in fMRI machines and monitored their brain activity while they experienced social exclusion. The exact same neural pathways that light up when you break your leg light up when someone you care about ignores you. But here is the jarring psychological truth of the modern world. Your brain still cannot tell the difference between being eaten by a saber-toothed tiger and telling your coworker that you can't cover their shift on a Friday night. When you say yes, when you desperately want to say no, you are not being a good person. You are not being polite. You are experiencing a literal trauma response. Let's look at the biology of a nice guy in real time. Someone asks you for a favor that crosses your boundaries. Your prefrontal cortex, the logical part of your brain, knows it's just an inconvenience, but your amygdala hijacks the system. It senses a threat to your social standing. It hits the panic button, activating the HPA axis, the hypothalamic pituitary, adrenal axis. Within milliseconds, your bloodstream is flooded with cortisol. Your heart rate spikes. Your breathing shallows. To your nervous system, you are fighting for your life. And the only way to turn off the alarm, the only way to stop the physiological panic, is to submit. To say yes, to be a nice guy. In behavioral science, there is a clinical term for this pathology. It is known as sociotropy. It is characterized by an intense, overwhelming, and desperate need for social acceptance, masking itself as altruism. It is the absolute polar opposite of autonomy. In severe clinical case studies of high sociotropy, psychologists observe something called pathological altruism. These are individuals who will literally bankrupt themselves, destroy their own marriages, or work themselves into chronic autoimmune diseases, all to maintain the illusion that they are the good guy who never lets anyone down. People high in sociotropy build their entire identities around pleasing others, not because they love people, but as a preemptive strike against abandonment. You aren't actually nice. Your nervous system is just terrified of friction. You have convinced yourself that by sacrificing your own needs, you are taking the moral high ground. You think you are the selfless hero of the story. But let's strip away the ego for a second. Let's look at what is actually happening when you play the martyr. Every time you swallow your anger to keep the peace, every time you laugh at a joke that insults you, every time you apologize for something that wasn't your fault, you are betraying yourself. And your subconscious is keeping a meticulous, terrifyingly accurate receipt of every single betrayal. This isn't just a bad habit you can meditate away. It is a highly destructive, invisible mechanism. Because you aren't just giving away your time and energy out of the goodness of your heart. You are operating on a hidden, covert contract. And when the world inevitably breaches that contract, the psychological fallout is catastrophic. Here is the lie you tell yourself every single morning. I am a giver. I am selfless. I put the needs of others before my own. It is a beautiful, noble story. You have likely built your entire self-esteem around it. It is also a complete fabrication. You are not giving anything away for free. You are operating an unlicensed emotional loan sharking business. In behavioral science and clinical psychology, this toxic mechanism is known as a covert contract, and it is the exact reason why your niceness feels so suffocating, heavy, and exhausting to the people around you. To understand the covert contract, we have to understand the evolutionary glitch you are actively weaponizing, reciprocity bias. Humans are biologically hardwired to balance the social scales. When someone does something for us, our nervous system registers a subtle psychological debt. We feel an overwhelming urge to return the favor. This is what kept early human tribes functioning. But you are not using reciprocity to build a community. You are using it to buy compliance. A covert contract is an implicit, unspoken, completely one-sided agreement you make with the world. The terms are always the same. If I am flawlessly good to you, you will never leave me. If I sacrifice my own boundaries, you will magically anticipate my needs and fulfill them. If I hide my flaws, you will give me love, sex, or respect. But here is the fatal flaw in your strategy. You never actually vocalize the terms of the contract. You trap the other person in a high-stakes game where they don't even know they are playing, let alone what the rules are. Look at the friend zone, the ultimate manifestation of the covert contract. A man acts as a therapist, an errand boy, and a platonic emotional sponge for a woman, secretly believing that if he logs enough nice guy hours, she will eventually be obligated to fall in love with him. You are treating human beings like emotional vending machines. You put the nice guy coins in, and you expect the affection or the promotion to drop out at the bottom. But people are not machines. Even if they don't consciously realize what you are doing, their nervous system detects the threat. They can subconsciously feel the invisible strings attached to your favors. They sense the heavy, unearned expectation lurking right behind your polite smile. That isn't kindness. It is a deeply cowardly form of manipulation. It is an attempt to control another human being's behavior without ever having to risk the vulnerability of simply asking for what you want. And what happens when the world inevitably fails to read your mind? What happens when the girl dates the guy who was actually direct with her? What happens when your boss promotes the assertive coworker who actually asked for the raise? The contract is breached. The emotional loan shark comes to collect. And that is exactly when the nice guy drops the mask and the true psychological rot begins to take over. There is a fundamental, unbreakable law of physics that applies perfectly to human behavioral psychology. Energy cannot be created, and it cannot be destroyed. It can only be transferred or transformed. So, let me ask you a question. When someone openly disrespects you, when your boundaries are violated, when you swallow your pride, bite your tongue, and force a polite smile, where exactly do you think that massive surge of aggressive energy goes? Do you think it just evaporates into the air? It doesn't evaporate. It metastasizes. By constantly suppressing your authentic emotional reactions just to maintain the fragile illusion of being nice, you are not actually eliminating conflict from your life. You are simply storing it inside your own nervous system. In behavioral science and neurobiology, the physical toll of this constant emotional suppression is measured by something called allostatic load. When you experience a boundary violation but force yourself to act submissive, your brain perceives the unexpressed anger as an unresolved, active threat. It traps your sympathetic nervous system in a state of chronic, low-grade hyperarousal. You are essentially forcing your body to constantly run a highly toxic background program of defensive rage, while your face desperately projects harmlessness. The man on the left is processing and releasing his aggression. The man on the right is consuming his. And when you consume that much suppressed emotion, your biology breaks down. This is why chronic people-pleasers are disproportionately plagued by stress-related illnesses. The suppressed rage literally attacks the body. It manifests as chronic insomnia, severe gastrointestinal issues, tension headaches, and sudden autoimmune flare-ups. The body always keeps the score. You have turned your biology into a resentment engine. But the decay doesn't stop at your biology. It eventually bleeds out into your behavior. Because you are too terrified of direct, honest confrontation to tell people when they cross your lines, your anger has to leak out sideways. This is the darkest, most insidious, and frankly most manipulative phase of the nice guy pathology. The selfless martyr slowly and unconsciously transforms into a covert saboteur. Because you cannot attack your oppressors directly, you resort to psychological guerrilla warfare. You start deploying weaponized incompetence. You accidentally forget important anniversaries to punish your partner. You become chronically late to subtly disrespect people's time. You disguise brutal, targeted insults as sarcastic jokes. You withhold physical intimacy and emotional affection, punishing the people closest to you for a crime you never even had the courage to tell them they committed. And the most brilliantly twisted part of this entire mechanism, it provides you with plausible deniability. Because you aren't yelling, you aren't hitting anyone, you can still play the victim. You can look at the damage you just caused and say, "I didn't mean to, I'm a nice guy." You think you are protecting the people around you from your dark side. But in reality, passive aggression is the most cowardly form of psychological abuse. You are stabbing people in the back simply because you lack the backbone to look them in the eye and say no. The ultimate tragedy of the nice guy isn't that he is a victim of a cruel, taking world. The tragedy is that his desperate pursuit of absolute moral purity is the exact thing that turns him highly toxic. You cannot be a truly good man if you are physically and psychologically incapable of being a dangerous one. Which brings us to the psychological basement, and the absolute necessity of the monsters you've locked inside it. Let's talk about your psychological basement. In the early 20th century, the pioneering psychiatrist Carl Jung coined the term the shadow. Over the last few decades, modern internet pop psychology has completely butchered this concept. They treat the shadow like it is some mystical, dark spirit haunting your soul, something you need to burn sage to get rid of. It isn't. Let's strip away the mysticism and look at your shadow through the cold, hard lens of behavioral science. Your shadow is not a demon. It is simply a psychological quarantine zone. It is the collection of every single human trait, impulse, and emotion that you were taught was unacceptable during your childhood development. Raw aggression, selfishness, ruthless ambition, ego, the capacity for physical destruction. When you were a child, your survival depended entirely on the adults around you. If expressing your anger resulted in the withdrawal of their love, your brain registered that anger as a literal threat to your survival. So, to become the ultimate nice guy, you had to take all of those dark, high-friction traits, lock them in the psychological basement, and throw away the key. You thought you were purging yourself of evil. But here is the terrifying reality of human neurobiology. Repression is never eliminated. In cognitive psychology, there is a phenomenon known as ironic process theory, often called the white bear problem. If I tell you to actively suppress the thought of a white bear, your brain actually has to work overtime, checking in on itself constantly to ensure the white bear isn't there. The act of suppression makes the thought infinitely stronger. This is what happens to your dark side. When you lock your natural aggression in the basement, it doesn't starve to death in the dark. It lifts weights. It mutates. Maintaining the nice guy mask requires a massive, exhausting amount of cognitive bandwidth. And eventually, your prefrontal cortex runs out of energy. You experience what behavioral scientists call ego depletion. Your psychological guard drops, and that is when the monster you locked in the basement violently kicks the door off its hinges. This is exactly why the nicest, most gentle guys are always the ones who suddenly explode into blind rage over a dropped fork or a minor traffic inconvenience. This is why the guy who literally cannot say no to his abusive boss is the exact same guy who is ruthlessly, emotionally abusive to his girlfriend behind closed doors. You haven't destroyed your dark side, you have just completely lost control over it. You have been sold a catastrophic, socially engineered lie about what it means to be a good man. You think you are a good person simply because you do not hurt people. You think you are righteous because you never cause friction or dominance. But if you are physically, emotionally, and psychologically incapable of being dangerous, you are not moral, you are just harmless. A rabbit is not peaceful because it doesn't attack a wolf, it's just prey. True morality, the kind of morality that commands deep, unwavering, primal respect from everyone around you, requires teeth. To cure the nice guy pathology, you have to reintegrate the shadow. You have to walk down into that dark basement, unchain your aggression, unchain your selfishness, unchain your absolute refusal to be disrespected, and integrate those traits into your conscious, waking mind. You do not do this so you can become a monster. You do this so you have the absolute capacity to be a monster, and you consciously, deliberately, every single day choose restraint. You choose to keep the sword perfectly sheathed. That is being a dangerous, highly disciplined, and authentically good man. But the moment most recovering people-pleasers realize this, they make a fatal, humiliating mistake. They swing from extreme submission to extreme toxicity, and they fall headfirst into a completely different trap. So, the covert contract shatters. You do everything right. You swallow your pride, you act like the perfect gentleman, you bend over backwards for your boss, and the world still spits in your face. The promotion goes to the assertive guy who barely works. The woman you've been secretly pining over for 3 years dates a guy who doesn't respect her. Your entire worldview collapses. You realize that your niceness was a completely failed survival strategy. But instead of looking inward to fix the psychological root of the problem, you do what millions of broken, resentful men do. You stumble into the darker, highly monetized corners of the internet. You decide it is time to become the villain. You decide it's time to become the alpha. But behavioral science has a very specific, devastating term for what you are actually doing. It's called reaction formation. And it is the most pathetic, transparent psychological trap a recovering nice guy can fall into. In psychodynamic theory, reaction formation is a defense mechanism where a person completely buries an anxiety-producing truth. In your case, the terrifying feeling of powerlessness, and aggressively overcompensates by adopting its absolute extreme opposite. You swing the pendulum from extreme submission to extreme aggression. But you haven't actually fixed the core pathology. You are just wearing a much heavier, much more toxic mask. Let's put the Faux-Alpha under the microscope. You think you are embodying the dark triad traits. You think you are Machiavellian. You think you are cold, calculated, and untouchable. But if we monitor your nervous system, it is doing the exact same thing it was doing when you were the ultimate people pleaser. Your master is still the exact same master. You are still a sociotrope. You are still desperately performing for an audience because you have zero internal, intrinsic self-worth. Before, you pleased people by being submissive. Now, you are trying to please a toxic, internet-manufactured idea of masculinity by being hostile. You just changed the demographic of who you are begging for approval. You are still terrified of what people think of you. You are just trying to aggressively control their perception through fear, instead of passively accommodating it through submission. You haven't developed healthy boundaries. You've just built massive, isolating walls. Being an abrasive jerk to waitstaff, acting emotionally unavailable to manipulate a partner's interest, or constantly having to verbally assert your dominance in a room isn't a sign of strength. It is the loudest, most neon-flashing biological signal of profound insecurity. True apex predators do not need to announce their presence. A truly integrated man, a man who is securely and authentically dangerous, does not need to constantly broadcast his power. He doesn't need to perform for the internet. His aggression, his boundaries, and his capacity for destruction are meticulously maintained tools. They are kept quietly in the holster. They are only drawn when absolutely necessary, and they are used with surgical, emotionless precision. You do not escape the Niskai trap by becoming a cartoon villain. You escape it by stepping off the pendulum entirely. You stop performing, you find the solid ground in the center, and you finally learn how to grow real teeth. Aggression is not violence. Aggression is not losing your temper. If you have to raise your voice, punch a wall, or hurl insults to get your point across, you are not displaying power. You are displaying a catastrophic, highly visible loss of emotional control. To an evolutionary psychologist, true aggression is simply a biological mechanism of forward motion. It is the psychological fuel required to enforce a boundary, protect a loved one, or demand exactly what you are worth in a room full of people who want to underpay you. In behavioral science, we divide human drive into 2 distinct categories. The nice guy operates almost entirely on avoidance motivation. He takes action to avoid rejection, avoid conflict, avoid someone getting angry at him. His entire nervous system is wired for defense. He is constantly retreating, apologizing for his own existence. The integrated man operates on approach motivation. He moves toward his goal, fully accepting that friction, brutal disagreement, and conflict are the inevitable, biological byproducts of moving forward. He does not seek out a fight. But if a fight stands between him and his objective, he absolutely refuses to alter his path to avoid it. To transition from prey to predator, from harmless to disciplined, You have to master an elite psychological concept known as holding frame. Your frame is your subjective reality. It is your emotional baseline. It is the invisible psychological perimeter you draw around yourself when someone tests you, when a boss makes a wildly unreasonable demand, when a client tries to bully you into a cheaper contract, or when a partner tries to manipulate you with a sudden guilt trip. They are actively trying to pull you into their frame. They want you to panic. They want you to apologize. They want you to react emotionally. The exact millisecond you react emotionally, you lose. The moment you start over-explaining yourself, frantically defending your perfectly reasonable boundaries or apologizing for their bad mood, you have literally handed them the psychological keys to your nervous system. Developing your teeth means learning to tolerate the severe, burning discomfort of another person's disappointment without rushing to fix it for them. It is looking someone directly in the eye when they are furious with you, holding your ground, letting the silence stretch out until it becomes unbearable for them, and then speaking with a quiet, devastating calm. You do not match their chaotic energy. You force them to break themselves against your stillness. You pull the sword out of the stone, but you keep it firmly in its sheath. You let them know that the blade is incredibly sharp, but you are the one deciding if it gets used. You transition from harmless to disciplined. And when you finally learn to master this exact mechanism, something entirely counterintuitive, something that will completely break your current understanding of human relationships, happens to the people around you. Let's talk about the exact psychological moment your kindness became completely worthless. Human social dynamics do not operate on fairy tales. They operate on the exact same brutal, unforgiving principles as macroeconomics. Everything is dictated by the scarcity principle. In behavioral economics, value is intrinsically permanently tied to rarity and difficulty of access. If your yes costs you absolutely nothing, no time, no effort, no sacrifice of your own boundaries, then it means absolutely nothing to the person receiving it. You think that by always being available, by constantly bending over backwards, by replying to every text within 3 seconds, you are making yourself indispensable. You are terrified that if you finally say no, people will instantly abandon you. But the behavioral reality is a brutal, humiliating paradox. When you have zero boundaries, you trigger psychological hyperinflation. You print so many yeses that your time, your energy, and your physical presence completely lose all of their purchasing power. You become the worthless fiat currency of human validation. To understand why people treat you like a doormat, we have to look at operant conditioning. Discovered by behavioral psychologist B.F. Skinner, it proves that humans, just like any other animal, learn behavior based on rewards and punishments. Every single time you interact with someone, you are actively, physically rewiring their brain on how to treat you. When you let a friend cancel plans on you at the absolute last minute, and you immediately reply, "No worries at all, man, you just rewarded their disrespect." When a partner throws a toxic temper tantrum and you rush to apologize just to keep the peace, you just positively reinforce their emotional volatility. You are the lever in the cage, and every time they press you, you dispense a treat. But what happens when you finally introduce friction? What happens when you build a wall, stand your ground, and deliver a cold, uncompromising no? This is the most dangerous phase of your recovery, and you need to be psychologically prepared for it. In behavioral science, when you stop rewarding a toxic behavior, the behavior doesn't just quietly disappear, it aggressively escalates. It is called an extinction burst. The emotional vampires in your life are going to panic. The people who have been comfortably feeding off your limitless supply of cheap, hyperinflated yeses will completely rebel. They will call you arrogant. They will call you selfish. They will try to guilt trip you, play the victim, and deploy every single manipulative tactic in the dark psychology playbook to pull you back into submission. They will shake the machine because they are terrified. The free ride is over. Let them panic. Let the machine stay locked. Let the parasites starve and fall away. Because while the manipulators throw their tantrums, something absolutely incredible happens to the high-value, secure individuals in your life. They begin to respect you deeply, on a primal, subconscious, biological level. Because you have finally signaled to their nervous system that your time has immense, undeniable value. You have proven that your approval is not freely given. It must be earned through mutual respect. A yes from a man who is terrified to say no is just compliance. It is the whimper of a hostage. But a yes from a man who is fully, dangerously capable of destroying the negotiation, burning the bridge, and walking away without looking back, that is a gift. That is power. You have finally stopped being a nice guy. You have integrated your shadow. You have developed your teeth, and you have learned to hold the line while the world burns around you. There is only one final step left in your psychological evolution, and it is the most beautiful, terrifying awakening you will ever experience. We began this film by looking at the most dangerous person in the room, the person who will quietly, desperately burn their own life to the ground just to hear you call them good. For your entire life, you have been absolutely terrified of the dark side of your own psychology. You were convinced that if you finally stopped being a people pleaser, if you finally let the anger out, if you finally started saying no and demanding respect, you would become a villain. You thought the monster was your shadow. But behavioral science reveals a profoundly different, terrifying truth. The monster was never your shadow. The monster was the mask. In humanistic psychology, the highest absolute peak of human development, the cure to the nice guy pathology is a state of being called congruence. Coined by Carl Rogers, congruence is the exact moment when your internal reality perfectly matches your external expression. It is the moment when you no longer have to filter your boundaries, your dark desires, or your natural aggression through a terrified, people-pleasing algorithm. When you finally reach congruence, your biology physically changes. Your HPA axis stands down. The chronic cortisol floods that have been poisoning your bloodstream completely stop. The parasympathetic nervous system engages. The resentment engine shuts off forever. You no longer need a covert contract because you simply state exactly what you want, and you walk away without hesitation if you don't get it. This is the absolute death of the nice guy, and it is the birth of the integrated man. You finally understand that true goodness is an active daily choice. It is not a default setting born out of cowardice and a fear of conflict. When you integrate your shadow, you reclaim your biological capacity for destruction. You sharpen your teeth. You build impenetrable armor. You do not do this to hurt people. You do this so that when you finally look at someone and choose to be kind, they know it is real. They know you are choosing grace, not because you are terrified of the consequences of saying no, but because you have the absolute power to do otherwise, and you consciously choose restraint. You aren't a villain. You are just finally awake.